Hello guys, welcome to Arkis Academy. In today's lecture, we're gonna run our first JavaScript code. So I'm Rahat Khan and I'm gonna be your instructor today. So let's get started. Alright, so in order to execute our first JavaScript code, we need a script tag. Now this tag would look like this. This is our script tag, and inside of it, whatever we write would be treated as JavaScript code. The browser would treat it as JavaScript code. Now, there are some specific rules where we can place this script tag. Now, we could either place this inside of this head tag or inside of this body tag. Now, the recommended way is to put this script tag inside of the body tag, and it has to be placed at the very bottom. Now, why is this recommended? While browsing, have you ever encountered a blank screen or a loading screen? Well, in that moment, your browser is actually busy parsing the JavaScript code. That's why it's not able to show you anything on the screen at that moment. So this creates a bad experience, right? It creates a bad user experience for you. Now, if we were to put our script tag, suppose if we were to put our script tag inside of the head, then what would happen is our browser actually parses code line by line. So our browser goes from the first line to the second line to the third line, right? And it parses the code and then it executes the code. So when it will reach the script tag, the browser will get busy executing the JavaScript code inside, right? And at that time, the user would not be able to see anything. The user would just see a loading screen or a blank screen. So this creates a bad user experience, right? So that's why we should never put our own JavaScript code inside of the head tag, all right? So we should always put it inside of the body tag, and it should always be placed at the very bottom after all other codes, okay? So this script tag, let's talk about it. Well, anything you write inside of this script tag, so anything I write inside of this script tag would be treated as JavaScript code. The browser would treat it as JavaScript code, and the browser would parse it as JavaScript code. All right. So here we will write our first JavaScript program. Okay. So if you remember from an earlier lecture, we console logged hello world in the browser's console. If you remember, we used a function like this one. We said console.log, first bracket, quotation marks. We said hello world, right? So we're going to do the same thing today, but we're going to do it inside of the index.html file, all right? So here's our code, console.log, hello world. But wait, Rahat, I don't see any output here. Where is this hello world going? Right? You might have a question like that. Well, in order to see this hello world, we need to open up our browser and we need to go into the console window. But first, we need to host this web application, which is our index.html file somewhere, right? Somewhere in our browser. We have to serve it first, right? And if you remember, in the last lecture, we installed an extension called Live Server. And we're going to use that same extension to serve our web application in our default browser. So let's do that first. Let's click on our index.html file and then do a right click and click open with Live Server. Now this will open up your default browser. Well, I'm using Microsoft Edge, so this is my browser. If you're using Chrome, then Chrome will pop up and take you to this link, right? Take you to this hyperlink where your index.html web application is being served. Okay. Now, where is our hello world? Right? We just see an hello. We just see a plain hello, but this hello is coming from this h1 tag. Then where is our consoled message? Well, in order to see that consoled message, you need to do a right click and then click inspect. This will open up your development tools, right? Your browser's development tools. And here you need to select console. Now, if you're on Chrome, then you'll see console written over here, right? I'm using Microsoft Edge. That's why the structure is different. And you might see your development tools in the bottom section of your browser. Well, I have set it up to my right side. That's why it's here. Anyways, let's do a refresh just to get rid of that error. Anyways, now here we can see that there's a message written in the console which says hello world, right? And yeah, that is the exact message we wrote inside of this console log, right? That matches. But Rahat, what is this index.html 14? Well, that's a very good question. So if you remember, our web application is called index.html, right? This is our web application. This whole thing is our web application, and the file it resides on is called index.html, right? And this 14, then what does this 14 means? Well, if we look at our index.html file, in the 14th line, we can see that we have console.logged this hello world message, right? So the code which is responsible for this output is on the 14th line of our index.html file, right? So that's why the console is showing us this little text, index.html colon 14, right? And hello world, which was our message. Now, let me explain how this console.log is working. Well, we see that there's a console, right? Then there's a dot operator. Now, why are we using this dot operator? Well, first let me talk about log. Well, log is a method, a function, right? What does a function do? A function's purpose is to do some work, right? Is to follow some instructions and perform some operations, right? So this log is a method, a function, all right? And this log function is living inside of this console function, all right? And we are accessing this log function via this dot operator, right? So this is the syntax of JavaScript. This is how we access methods inside of other functions, right? Now, we are telling this console to log something. Now, what does logging means? Logging means to write something, right? So we are instructing this console to write something down. What does he supposed to write down? We are telling him to write down hello world, which are inside of this parenthesis, right? And inside of this quotation marks. Now, you might have a question, what are these quotation marks? Now, single quotation marks and double quotation marks both are treated as same inside of JavaScript, okay? And any text that goes inside of this quotation marks are treated as plain text, like they don't have a special meaning. Now, what does this special meaning means, right? What do I mean by a special meaning? Well, here, console has a special meaning to JavaScript. This log has a special meaning to JavaScript. This dot operator has a special meaning to JavaScript. But this hello world right? This hello world text does not have a special meaning to JavaScript. So anything that goes inside of this quotation marks would be treated as plain text. And if we want to print that plain text anywhere, JavaScript would print it as so. Right? It won't modify anything, it won't change anything. If we want to store this somewhere, then JavaScript would store it as so. It won't modify anything inside of it, right? Now, in the future, we would also learn about this third version of this quotation marks, which is called a caret symbol, right? But this is an advanced topic. This actually gives this plain text special abilities, right? Now, we have been talking about this stuff for quite a bit now, but these things inside of this quotation marks has a special name in JavaScript, and that name is called a string. It's called a string. So this is a string, this hello world is a string, and anything inside of this quotation marks are a string. And we will talk about this caret one in the future, okay? And we will also be talking about strings in depth in a future lecture. But right now, know that anything that goes inside of first quotation marks or second quotation marks are considered as strings, right? So this was our first JavaScript code that we've executed inside of the browser via our web application index.html, right? Well, it was a simple program, but in the future, we would go in depth and we would write large programs. But for now, it's sufficient, right? Because we are just beginning. So in the next lecture, we're gonna talk about separation of concerns in JavaScript. So hope to see you there. Bye bye.